and welcome to Grace and Lottie's channel. It's been a little while since I posted, so I'm really glad to get this video done and out here for you guys to get to see and to get to share some new markers that I really like using. They're really fun and they feel really good in your hands, so that doubles it for fun. And I got these markers at a local art fair, at my local art store that I like, Preston Art Supply here in Louisville. And they are so much fun. And I've got this mandala that I drew that I'm going to be doing it on, and you can go over to the blog, and I'll have the link down in the description to get this. It'll be a free coloring sheet that you can download and print on whatever you want. Here are the materials I'm going to be using. It is the Sign Pen Brush Flexible Point from Pentel, and those are the markers that are watercolor, and they are so much fun. They have the nylon point, and it kind of moves a little bit so you can control your thickness, as well as I'll be using the water brushes, my white gel pens, pencil sharpener, because you can see my little itty bitty white pencil down there as well. I'm going to be doing this on Bristol paper. I found that this one's the best so far that I have tried with these markers. I tried doing it on some cold press watercolor and it tended to bleed pretty bad, and not in a good way. So I'm going to be using this today, and let's get started. With this video, I'm going to have it sped up quite a bit, not like super crazy fast, but pretty fast, just because none of these techniques are difficult. As you saw there, I went in with my red, and I just went around the inner part of this center circle right there, and then I took my water brush and I pulled it out. Now, you don't want to get your water brush too wet. On the side, I typically keep a paper towel there, so if it wants to flow a little faster than I want, I can dab it off right there. As well as if it tends to put down a little bit too much water, you can take that corner of your paper towel and the capillary action in it will kind of suck up a little bit there too, so that you can correct it without it bleeding all over the place. Now, the problem that I had with other paper was that these markers just bled quite a bit through it, just because it wanted to go everywhere. It's a watercolor marker, and so the cold press paper did that. Since I did this, I have tried them on hot press too, and the hot press tends to behave a little bit better, but hot press paper feels a lot like Bristol to me, so similar in that way. So just to kind of let you know what that is like on this. The purple that I went in there with came out a lot darker, and then I had the blue as well there, and you see how dark it came out. I ended up later using the lighter blue, and it was a little closer to the shade I wanted. This was the first big piece I was doing with this, and so trying out some new techniques, which is fun to do, and some of them I liked, some of them I didn't, and I learned as I went. So hopefully by watching this video, you'll be able to learn a little bit before you start. I'm using the orange now, and I went on the inside and the outside. Now I'm going to brush them together, and you can see that by doing that, you get the strong color on the edges, and then it kind of fades toward the middle. Just kind of playing around with these. I had fun using a bunch of different colors in this, not just trying to stay in one color scheme. I did not use the brown and I did not use the black in this, but I used all the other colors that were in it. And just fun to see how they behave together, played around. Makes a fun rainbow too work. Kind of enjoy that too, enjoy a lot of the bright colors. I did draw this one, and as I said earlier, it is available over on the blog, so you guys can go over there and look at it and download it, and you can color along too if you want. I'd love to see the colors that you guys pick. As I said earlier, I liked the lighter blue, so now I'm going in with the lighter blue. Now I color in the whole little piece here, and that does make it pretty dark, a little darker than I wanted there too. So again, learning as I went on this, getting to get a feel for these markers and how they work. Know that they do go on pretty dark. They're nice and bold, and I love that they have so much color, because I enjoy that just bright, vivid color on when I'm working on things, and it's harder to do that with pencil sometimes, and so this is a great way to get in there and get to feel it and get to have the fun of watercolors too, because they do behave a lot like those as well. So going all the way around, almost around. Oh, found some spots I missed. Now going in with the yellow, because I colored in the whole thing, I didn't bother to go back in with the water brush. That seemed a little silly. But with this yellow, I'm going to do the outside, and I'm coming back in with the orange and going around the inner part there, so that you'll get to see the two colors blend together. I think a lot of times with orange with yellow right here, that kind of creates a nice gradient. But one thing I learned with the yellow on these is that, especially with green and orange, that by putting in the yellow, it does help create a neat gradient that it can blend through. It's kind of like the other color likes to move through it. Sometimes, like, the color doesn't want to move as far as I would like for it to move. Like that orange line in the middle, I would not have been able to pull that all the way out in each one of those little petals. It would have kind of stopped before probably about the halfway point up them. But by having the yellow there, it likes to move and go through the space a lot better. You'll see that later when I'm working with what I look at this and see as leaves that are around the outer spot when I'm working with green, that how it just doesn't like to travel as much, but when the yellow is there for it to travel through, it moves a lot better. Oh, fun color there. Now we get to go do all the others, so I will let you listen to some music while I do this because it takes a little while to do all of these. Next, I used one of my favorite color combinations, and I like to use this one with pencil and pretty much anything I do, and that's where I will fade orange and pink together. Starting with the pink here, it's a little bit more bold of a color in these. Sometimes you have a paler pink. This one is a pretty bold pink, especially when you put it on the paper straight like this. Now, one way you can dilute the color that I learned is if you take your brush, like my water brush, and I tap it to the tip, I can get just a little bit of color on it, and that's one way to be able to lighten the color a little bit. I haven't played with that technique quite enough yet to feel comfortable with it. Still learning on that. Just kind of like to put the color in, see where it is, and then move it around with my water brush on the paper. Kind of my fun with it. So doing a lot of pink around here, and then next I'll go in with the orange around the upper edges all the way around. This is the way I like to work whenever I'm coloring any geometrics like this, that I love to go around and find all of them and do them all at once rather than doing all of the steps and then going back and doing them that way. I prefer to do one color all the way around, the next color all the way around, blend it all the way around, so it's like each step gets done at the same time. So here, hitting it with the water brush, and you can see just how much fun it is to blend those together. One thing I did learn as I'm using these, that when you put the water on it at first, sometimes it doesn't look like it's blending as much as you'd like. As the water sits there, it does blend a little bit more, so harder lines will soften some. It does not like to move a whole lot after like the water has dried, so you can't like go back and try to blend it a little bit more. That doesn't work with this. But know that even if it doesn't blend as much as you want, you can always go back and hit these with a color pencil or something like that to kind of blend it just a little bit more. There are other ways of going back in to correct your issues if you think there is an issue with it. Sometimes having it be a stronger line, it will show to you, really doesn't show to anybody else. So just know that. Always step back, look at your work, because when you're working with it up close, you'll see imperfections, and when you step back a little bit from it, you'll notice, oh, that wasn't nearly what I thought it was. I learned that a lot when I'm doing videos, because when I'm working on it, I'm up close, and then when I go in to edit it, I'm like, oh, that really does look a lot cooler, and I've been so close to it that I'm seeing every little minor imperfection, and then rather than taking in the piece as a whole, and then when I see the video, I was like, oh, okay, I do like that. So take the time to step back from your work and just admire it, get to see what it'll look like from a normal distance rather than the up close, and you may be surprised with what you see then. So I'm going to be quiet as I finish up all of these, and I'll come back when we do the next color. Now coming in with the blue, and I did a lot of blue, and this blue is one of my favorite colors to just be on its own. Again, using the lighter blue that's in the set, not the darker blue. The darker blue is really dark, so great if you're wanting to go in and do that really deep, almost midnight blue. It's not quite midnight, but more of a probably deep sapphire. But a lot of times with the work I'm doing, this is much closer to a blue that I am trying to use. So I'm going to go around all these areas and then hit them with my brush, just outlining and then pulling the color into the area with the water brush. And I'm going to be quiet as I go around the rest of them because there are a lot of these areas to do, and I'll let you listen to some music as I do those. All of that blue is done, so now moving on to what I look at and see as leaves. Now, I learned a lot in doing these leaves. You can see here I used the green and the yellow using that same technique that I was talking about using the yellow to pull out. Now I learned that a little bit of green goes a long way because this ended up a lot darker than I wanted. And so I used that to my advantage here. I made these inner leaves darker, and you'll see when I move to the outer set of leaves that I made those a little bit lighter, and it was more the color I was going for. Now it's not a bad thing to have the inner ones dark, kind of creates some interest with it rather than all being exactly the same. So not the end of the world, but not the look I was going for. But once I do one, gotta do the others the same way. So I kept up, and in my stubbornness did all of the others in the same way here in the middle. Now you can see it's not difficult. I just did the yellow, kind of filled it in, doing a little bit of green at the bottom, then hit it with the water brush and combine the two. And it's pretty neat the way, it's fun to watch it, I guess, for me. Neat and exciting to watch them kind of come together, you know, because when they're looking like those green and yellow stripes, I was like, is this going to be anything? It kind of looks a little funny. A little different look than what I'm going for as finished. So neat to watch it transform. And I'm going to be quiet during the outer leaves because you'll see that I just do it a little bit differently and using less green and more yellow. in doing those, and it creates a lighter green than what this one did, as well as it blends, I think, a little bit better than this one blended. So I will be quiet and let you watch and listen to music. Now all those beautiful green leaves are done. I'm going to go through and add areas that I'm going to make gray just because I don't want it to be stark white in that many areas. So I'm adding gray to the outer edges, then pulling it in. That kind of gives a little bit of dimension so that that middle line kind of looks like it raises up a little bit. I just think it's a better way of getting a little bit of interest in it. I'm not doing a lot of gray. I'm keeping it pretty soft on all of this. Especially when you stay close to the edge like that, right on the line, you'll see that the gray blends in. It's not dark. It kind of gives it that little bit of, I'm not stark bright white. I'll also go around all of the edge of all of those little itty bitty teeny tiny circles that are right there and hit those with the gray as well coming out. I think that helps to get the piece not look like it's just sitting on flat paper, kind of brings them together and lets them sit together nicely, I guess is the best way to put it. I don't know what the exact term is on that one. If you do, please put it in the comment below and let me know. But I think it just kind of marries the piece to the paper it's on rather than just looking like a piece of clip art I threw on. So going around the edges here, I'm not going to do the outer edge on this. I'm just going to do the middle edge and then that outer, all the way around those little itty bitty circles. Don't worry about those little circles getting anything in them. I'm going to go back and put gel pen on those so that I can, white gel pen, so that they'll go back to being white. So all those little dots, if your gray bleeds into it, don't worry. You can go back and correct that. That's very, very, very easy, very simple to do. So don't stress. Let the color flow and it'll be a lot happier. You'll end up getting a much better result too, rather than trying to be so exact with it, especially around something tiny like that. Especially with these water brushes, if you're using a water brush, they're hard to be exact with. That's not the nature of them. Just especially the ones that I have, they tend to want to not be ultra consistent in their release of water. If you have a brand that is really good, I would love to know about it. I have yet to really hear of one that is easy to make sure that like it's not just gonna suddenly release a bunch and then a little, a bunch, then a little. And it's not that I'm gripping it hard. It just sometimes likes to move really fast and then other times it dries up. And So still working on it, figuring it out. Maybe someday I'll be good at it and I won't have this issue, but I'm having a feeling that it may just be the nature of the brush and not so much user error. Maybe I'm wrong. So again, if you have any tips on that, please leave them in the comments below. I will be very, very, very thankful to get those. So I'm going to be quiet as I go back in and finish all this and hit it with the brush, and we will be almost done. We'll be in the embellishing part, I guess is the best way to put it, for the next. If you noticed in the beginning, I had some really nice thin Stabilo markers, and this is what I'm going to do with them. I'm going to use those to go back over top of what I've already done. Now I did hit this with a little bit of fixative just so that it wouldn't bleed as much through my other things. I wanted these to be a little more crisp lines. And I'm just going through and putting very simple lines on in these, not in every one of them, creating some interest just by making simple lines. And this is something that you can do. You don't have to do this step. I think it's pretty without it, but doing this little bit helps create quite a bit of interest in the piece as a whole. See, I'm thinking, which one do I start? Thinking. There's a lot that you guys don't see. Try to figure out where I'm going to start with it. Then I figure it and I jump in and I go. But it just kind of created a little bit of shading on it. As you can see, it's going around. With the green lines done, next I go in with the orange, and I'm hitting all of the little yellow orange petals that I did with just a simple dot. I use the Stabilo marker here rather than the brush marker, which I could have used the brush marker, but the Stabilo had more color choices, and since I couldn't really blend to do this with the sign brush markers, the Stabilo made more sense for it because I had the exact shade of orange that I wanted. So that's why I use that, and then putting all these little dots. And it's these little details that tend to make the piece look really nicely finished. So if you ever wonder, it just doesn't feel like it's done, or like it could use some more, but I don't know what, try these little doodles, because a lot of times that's what comes back in and adds a bunch. Now, realized that I wanted to do some more, so I hit those little petals on the outside with the orange and the yellow to tie those into the ones that were in the middle. So realized I wasn't going to leave those white, added some color out there. Coming back and fixing it, add the dot. Waited for it to dry. You don't see the weight there where they were drying. Now, because of that inner purple being a lot darker than I wanted, I ended up going back and putting some my white Prismacolor pencil right there, that little itty bitty stub, over it, and that helped lighten it up a little bit so that it wasn't quite so dark and shadowy in there. And so going through there, doing that. We're almost to the final step, which is really fun. I'm glad it's fun watching this again after I did it, because it's been a little while since I did this one. Now I'm adding in some lines, cleaning up a little bit, adding some boldness to some that I wanted to darken up right here. So you can see I'm doing that, making those, because all of the line width in the original one, now the one you're going to download, I have already done this step, so you don't need to worry about that, but this was off of an original right here, so I had to go back and darken these to make them a little more bold. Not having the same line width everywhere helps create a lot of interest in your work, so play around with that using skinny lines and larger lines, and you'll be amazed at how much that just helps make it look a little more put together. So cleaning up another little area here, again working off an original. When you don't get you guys don't have, or sorry, you guys have the finished. I did not on this piece. Just making all of those sticks a little bit darker because they and my version were lighter because I also ran this in a grayscale. I find that a lot of times when I'm working that a little bit of a grayscale for a print helps me to achieve the look I'm looking for a little bit better, and then I can go back and always darken lines. You can't lighten them. So almost done, yay. Forget how long and tedious this is. If you guys don't know, the runtime on the video before I shortened all of this was well over 4 hours of work. So what you guys get to see in 30 minutes takes me a lot of time to do. Finally made it to the final step. I did hit it again with fixative, and now I'm going in with my gel pen. I do find that fixative helps keep the color from bleeding through on my gel pen. Sometimes my gel pen likes under layers to show through on it. And this saves me from having to do it 2 or 3 times, sometimes to get it to be bright white. You can see my desk here has gotten a little bit messy, as well as I took off my tape. I had to tape it partway through because it started curling, and I'd taken it up, take it to outside to spray the fixative, and then when I came back in, it's like, oh, I don't want to have to tape it down just for another second, so I weighted it down with things that I had sitting around, my coaster and some other little things that I had that would do this. So just hitting all of those dots in the blue with the white, and that just makes them become really nice and pretty and vivid. Any other spot where some color might have bled through. I do really like my Signos. I wish that they came in a smaller size because it is a pretty fat line that it does, and so that's when I switch over to my jelly rolls, is when they're really small little areas, because they do better because they're a smaller pen right there to get into those little itty bitty circles. So clean up, clean up, clean up. We have almost reached the end. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. As well as you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. I am at Grady's and Lottie's. I've been posting there a little bit during this break. My family's in the middle of a move, so videos are still going to be sporadic for a little bit more. For those of you who don't know, we are moving to San Diego, so from Louisville, so it's a little bit of a trek over there. If you want to keep up, we're not being really great over on the This Is an Everyday vlog channel, where the name is very fitting, but we do post some updates on there as to what's going on, as well as I'm wanting to start some videos where I talk about what I'm currently working on that doesn't make it into being a filmed video, just my fun side projects, because I have been creating during this time off, and I haven't just been sitting around. But it has been a pretty major undertaking to get a cross-country move with 3 kids, 2 of which are now teenagers. So just bear with me as we make it through this transition, and hopefully soon I will be back to a really regular upload schedule. Remember that art happens in everyday life. I'm sure you have chaos too in yours, so make sure that you're watching for it. Bye.